That's Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to a live Manchester United news, transfer news, and update show on the channel. David Ornstein dropped a bomber that Chelsea have entered the race for Alejandro Garnacho. Could Garnacho be sold? Napoli, Chelsea, Atletico Madrid, Manchester United open to cashing in due to PSR issues. Could he be sold, and could he be sold in January? My feeling has always been I wouldn't be shocked if he left in the summer, but I don't see him going in January. But with Manchester United unable to find any suitors for Antony, and him missing that City yesterday isn't going to help, maybe they're going to have to look at thinking, oh, we can't get Antony out. Rashford's on such high wages, and Garnacho isn't really a fit for Amarin's system. Although he's still young and could be moulded and developed into potential fit for Amarin's system, there is a lot of interest in Alejandro Garnacho. Manchester United have interest in Gittins. We spoke about that in my video earlier, and we will touch upon that in more detail later today. We've got updates on Marcus Rashford and Antony exit, among a few more news stories. Rasmus Hojlund could also be one to leave United. So we're going to get into all the news. We're going to get into all the transfer news. We're going to get into all the updates. But if you do enjoy today's video, please do go ahead and hit that like button, and feel free to subscribe down below if you're new, because there's a lot to talk about in today's show. So let's start with the David Ornstein news coming out. David Ornstein said Chelsea make inquiries on Alejandro Garnacho and Gittins. Manchester United and Dortmund wingers among multiple options of interest to Chelsea for potential signing in wide areas. Conversation at an early stage, but both under 20-year-olds in the conversation. Now, people are saying, would you swap Garnacho with João Felix or Neto? Weirdly, I do think João Felix suits the system because he's a player that plays best in sort of the wide pockets. But I do think he's a little bit overrated. I've mixed feelings about João Felix, and I like Neto, but he has an injury record. And again, I think Neto is more of a traditional winger than someone that operates in the pockets. Now I look at Chelsea, and they've got Sancho, they've got Neto, and they've got Madueke as wing options. They've got Esteval to also come in. Cole Palmer can play there if needed, but he's going to play centrally for Chelsea. I do think Chelsea need another winger because Madueke is hit and miss. Neto gets injured, and Sancho can be good, but maybe they want more of a transition threat. And maybe they will look at Garnacho. I think Chelsea's priorities will be right centre-back and goalkeeper in the summer, but Chelsea like a young star, and when Chelsea are in for your player, when Napoli are in for your player, you know that there's a player there in Alejandro Garnacho. I think people are trying to make out as if Alejandro Garnacho is this bad player and completely washed at the moment for some reason, when that's clearly not the case. He's just struggling at the moment because he's playing for an unstable side where the environment isn't helping, and I don't think he fully suits the system. He's learning his new role, but there is a lot of talk about Garnacho leaving. Ben Jacobs said that Garnacho is one of several profiles looked at as Chelsea assess the market opportunities. Napoli have already made an approach and are serious about Garnacho. Man United are not actively looking to sell Garnacho unless an offer comes in that is too good to turn down emerges. Manchester United want 60 million for Garnacho. But Garnacho himself, his agent is looking around at moves potentially in case United decide to offload him. We know that for a fact. We know that Garnacho's into looking around at moves. We know that there must have been some indication given to Napoli that he could be open to the move because they bidded for him. And while Chelsea have interest in Maino and Garnacho because they know that United would sell them at the right price due to PSR issues. Now, it's always been said that Garnacho is way more likely to leave United than Kobbie Mainoo. He's the one that they'd more likely sell. One, I think because Kobbie Mainoo would be better suited to the system. And two, I think there's always a feeling that Garnacho, if he ever becomes good enough, would leave for Real Madrid one day. He's always got that thing about him. But it will be interesting to see what happens. Would you swap Garnacho for Cole Palmer? Well, obviously I'd swap Garnacho for Cole Palmer, but Chelsea aren't going to do that. I think everyone would swap Garnacho for Cole Palmer. But weirdly, I don't think that's going to happen. Garnacho and 50 million for Cole Palmer. We wouldn't even have the 50 million to do that, and I think Chelsea would still turn that down. There is news about Naipan to Arsenal. That looks like he's going to go to Arsenal. David Ornstein's pretty much confirmed that as well. People said, could Kobbie be a 10? Maybe. I think if Kobbie was a 10 in a 4-3-3, yes. But Kobbie as a wide 10, which is a mixture of a 10 and a winger, I'm not sure. But he can retain the ball up high. So it'd be interesting to see. But I want to get into the Garnacho news. I want to get into Garnacho's story. So David Ornstein has obviously confirmed Chelsea's interest in Alejandro Garnacho. They also have interest in Kobbie Mainoo and quite a few of our players. I feel like if Chelsea feel like there's a good player that's young that they can pick up for a good price, they'll do it, because Chelsea know if that player flops, they can still get good money for them if they decided to sell them later down the line. So let's dive into some more news. Let's dive into some more updates, because it wasn't actually David Ornstein that broke the story. It actually came out early today by Tanzalik that Chelsea are now interested in signing Alejandro Garnacho. So it wasn't even David Ornstein that necessarily broke the story. It's been said by a few people that Chelsea are now interested in signing Alejandro Garnacho. And obviously, we've had a bit of news come out since then. So it has been said, sources say Manchester United are under increasing pressure to sell a highly valuable academy player, which could represent a pure profit under the PSR rules. United signed Garnacho from Atletico Madrid Academy when he was 16 in 2020, and they are prepared to sell an academy graduate Rashford who is keen to leave. So sources say due to PSR pressure, Manchester United are more open to selling academy and selling young players. Now, I'm kind of bored of talking about Garnacho this, Garnacho that. Will he leave? Will he stay? Because there's a lot of news. But I do think it's interesting that Chelsea in the race. And I'm going to get into the news. And then I am going to move on from the story and talk about Gittins and players that United are looking at in attack. But it was also said in regards to Alejandro Garnacho that Garnacho, as it said here, is one of several profiles looked at as Chelsea assess market opportunities. Napoli have already made an approach and are serious about Garnacho. Manchester United are not actively looking to sell unless an offer comes in that's too good to emerge. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up the situation on Garnacho. I'm going to tell you straight up. Gittins, yeah, we're going to talk about Pletty goals, saying we're interested in Gittins. We're going to talk about that in a second. For me, Cobby isn't for sale, but Man United, if they got 100 million bid for Cobby, they'd obviously consider it. But I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Garnacho, because it is getting boring. There's clubs interested in Garnacho, and if someone gave Manchester United 60 million in January and Garnacho wanted to leave, then Garnacho would leave United. Man United would accept a 60 million bid for Garnacho. They would. But I don't think it's going to happen, if I was going to be completely honest with you. Sky said that Chelsea are looking at a possible deal for Garnacho. Jamie Gittins also of interest to them, who United are now looking at. Man United do not want to sell, and it's thought it would take a huge offer. So do you know what my actual thought is on this? I think Man United are playing we do not want to sell him card. And I don't think Man United want to sell him in January, but I wouldn't be shocked if Ineos do want to sell him in the summer. If it doesn't, I think for me, people were making too early conclusions on Garnacho, and I'd like to see how he does between now and the summer. When he gets a bit confident, he gets back in form, he learns Ruben Amorim's system. But I do think he's a player that Man United may look to sell in the summer, because if they sell him in the summer, they can, one, replace him a lot easier. And I think the reason it makes no sense to sell Garnacho now is because we've got 60 million, and who are we going to spend it on? Dorgles. Well, that's not a Garnacho replacement. If we lose Antony, Rashford and Garnacho, we go and spend that money on Dorgles. Well, that's silly if we're not scoring goals. We're already thin and light in attack. Whereas if Matheus Cunha was available in January and Wolves said to us, you know what, you give us £55 million and you can buy Matheus Cunha, then I'd be like, okay, you know what, get Garnacho out in January and then that can fund Matheus Cunha. But that's not the case. I'd like to see Garnacho given to the end of the season, although part of me thinks the funds from that transfer could be used to invest and improve the squad. But I don't think we can get anyone in January that's really going to do that. And I think United's stance is they're probably not bothered about selling Garnacho in January. Give him more time, young player. I think they'd want to sell Garnacho in the summer, potentially if Amorim doesn't see him as a fit, because that money can be invested elsewhere. So I think Man United are only saying, well, we'd only sell Garnacho in January if a big price comes in, because there's no one we can really replace him with, and we're not desperate to sell him right now. We want Antony out, we want Garnacho out. And I think that's where United are at. And I think Garnacho could go in the summer. I don't think he'll go in January. But if Chelsea do want to go and bid 60 million, or if Napoli do want to go and bid 60 million, then there's a strong possibility that Garnacho could leave if someone's out there and ready to bid 60 million. Do you think United will go for Victor Osimhen? No. I think maybe if we sold Garnacho and the money's there, maybe. But I think if we wanted Victor Osimhen, we would have already discussed it with Napoli now. Considering Napoli have made 2 bids for Garnacho, I think it would be something that's already been discussed. But due to PSR pressure, we could sell Garnacho, but you've got till June 30th to sell, and we are looking at Gittins, so it is one to keep an eye on. Now, Alejandro Garnacho is not actively pursuing a move away from United, despite reports that Garnacho is agents looking around and had talks with Napoli, and despite a rumour that Garnacho had signed a deal and agreed a deal with Napoli, got a verbal agreement. It said that while Garnacho's agent is looking around, because it's been put up publicly that Man United would listen to offers for Garnacho, so Garnacho's agent would be silly not to look around. Garnacho himself isn't necessarily looking for a way out of United. Now, I do want to talk about Rasmus Hojlund. Some reports coming out, team talk, that Manchester United could be open to offers for Rasmus Hojlund, which is interesting. Now, I'm going to be honest, when it comes to Rasmus Hojlund, I think because he's had a couple bad games, I think all of a sudden it's a little bit reactionary. Would that be the word? reactionary. Hojlund's had a bad game. Let's write a report the next day that Man United are looking to sell him. Man United aren't actively looking to sell Hojlund, but Manchester United would obviously be open to selling Hojlund for the right price potentially if Amrin doesn't see fit. Like Lenny Yoro and Amad Diallo, apparently the only two players in the Man United squad that they would not actively look for offers for right now. Now, some people are writing off Lenny Yoro because he had a bad game, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's one game against Sulemana. I think would have given everybody a difficult game. But Hojlund is one that potentially, this is his second season, 2 years out with the Omar Barada, where, yeah, I think, again, if an offer came in for Hojlund, I think United would consider it. Because, look, I like Hojlund. I think he could become a top player, and I think you've got to be patient with him. But if he's not scoring goals, he's got to offer more, and he's not offering enough. And we will talk about that because Amran has spoke about Hojlund, and there is obviously talk of Rasmus Hojlund leaving. But I think Man United will play the Garnacho is not for sale stance, and I don't necessarily think he's for sale in January. But the reason Man United will play the Garnacho is not for sale stance is because that means that they're telling Napoli and Chelsea he's not for sale, so if you want him, you're going to have to spend big. If Man United was saying, yeah, we'll sell Garnacho in January, Chelsea and Napoli will think, we can get him for 40, 50 million because they want to sell him. Whereas if United do the Garnacho is not for sale stance, I think it means you have to pay up if you want him. He's not for sale. We're not selling him in January. I've seen a rumor flying around that Zirkzee could be banned, or what, because of his celebration. Probably not. There was a rumor going about that the Ugarte was going to be banned after the Arsenal game for something on Kai Havertz. I doubt it as well. Cunha is available, but no one's gone near Wolves bidding for him. It's because Cunha has told Wolves he's not signing a new contract. I think he signed a new contract at Wolves, and the new contract has a relegation clause in. So if Wolves are relegated, apparently he'll be available in a £45 million bid, which would be, to be honest, I almost want Wolves to get relegated. So get Cunha for 45 million, and Victor Gyökeres has got a 58 million clause at the end of the season. We could get Cunha and Victor Gyökeres for like 102 million pounds. You sell Garnacho for 60 million pounds, and that's like a 45 million spend. To have a Cunha, Amad, Gyökeres front three would be absolutely unbelievable. Another point I want to bring up: never sell to a rival. You're only strengthening them while weakening a team. And I want to talk about that. I don't want Garnacho to go to Chelsea because we sell Sancho to Chelsea, he looks better. Chelsea give us Mount, he gets injured all the time. Chelsea, one of those teams where they'll buy your player if they know they're going to buy your player and that player's going to make them better, and they'll sell their player if they think that player's going to make us worse. When you do business with Chelsea, you come off the worst side. This is the team that got 65 million for Kai Havertz and 55 million for Mason Mount with 1 year left on his contract. Chelsea don't muck about in the transfer window, and that makes me sceptical. And I think Chelsea are in for Garnacho because they think, can we mug Man United off and get this kid for 45 million and then sell him in 2 years for 70? That's what I feel. I think Chelsea wouldn't pay 60 million for Garnacho, but I think Chelsea think, could we get him for less than 50 million? There's some business there as well. Hojlund ain't fit for the system. Not yet, but I think if the team was built better, Hojlund could work in the system and develop well to be in the system. Because Hojlund had some good moments yesterday. When Hojlund got the ball in front of him and could run down the channels, when the ball was in front of Hojlund, he's good. Running down the channels, creating that chance for Garnacho, he's good. But the problem with Hojlund is when it's back to goal play and he's in the graveyard shift living off scraps, you can't do that. So if we're not scoring and not creating for our striker, we might as well play Zirkzee because he can just do the little hold up and the flicks on, at least give us some element of retention in the final third so we're not just constantly having turnovers. If Man United had a lot of the ball, we were giving Hojlund a lot of the ball, and we were letting him run down the flanks, he would be much better. So we're not getting the best out of Hojlund. But at the same time, Zirkzee's got to start the next few games because he's doing a lot more. But United would be open to selling Garnacho due to PSR issues, but he's not for sale as of now. It would take a big bid. I think Napoli could pay up 60 million if they get desperate, because the thing you got to remember with Napoli is it's not like they can really wait till the summer. They've sold one of their best players and they're in a Serie A title race. So if you look at Napoli right now, they're not really in a place to wait till the summer. They need someone now, and they need someone that they really want. So maybe Napoli pay up 60 million for Garnacho when it happens. There's conversations there, but I don't see Chelsea spending 60 million in January. Chelsea have 44 players and they do not need more players. Yeah, 100%. And also, how many Chelsea players are unhappy? And Cuckoo, João Felix, because they're just sitting on the bench in the Conference League squad. I think that, Alejandro Garnacho, we benched Sancho at Manchester United. He can give Neto and Madueke a run for his money, for sure. But I wouldn't think Chelsea would be a good move for Garnacho. If we had Semenyo and Amad, Zirkzee could cook at United. With Semenyo's pace, do you know what? I said it today. Someone asked my unpopular opinion. I said Semenyo would be a better signing Semenyo would be a better signing than Nico Williams, because Nico Williams, one, doesn't suit Amarin's system. It's a little bit like Garnacho, but Semenyo could play as a 10 and a wing back in Amarin's system. He's got that pure athleticism, power, ball carrying. I would take Semenyo at United in a heartbeat. Semenyo, Cunha, I like Morgan Rogers, I like João Pedro, Buemo. This has grown on me as well, although this is his first proper sort of breakout season as well. But let's dive into the news. Let's dive into the stories, because there is quite a bit to talk about, and there's quite a bit that I want to get through. And I want to talk about Hojlund. I feel like we've spoken about Garnacho so much that I'm bored of it. It's like, until we get a real update, other than this club and this club's interested, but United won't sell unless it's 60 million, because that's what we're being told. I'm a bit bored of the Rashford and Garnacho news. Same with Antony news. This team's interested in Antony on loan, but they won't pay his wages. I feel like we're getting a lot of the same as well. But I want to talk about Rasmus Hojlund. I want to talk about him, and then we'll talk about the Antonys, and we'll talk about a few other stories going about. And then I will get into the chat, because I want to talk about Toby Collier. His performance, I thought, was really impressive the other day. So it came out here. Sources say Manchester United are under increasing pressure to... Oh, no, I read that one out here. Chelsea are looking for a possible deal for Garnacho, Gittins of interest. I read that out. So Ruben Amorim said this on Rasmus Hojlund's form. I think it's a team problem. You can see it. It's not just form now, it's from the past. So we clearly have a lack of goals and a lack of threat. When you threaten the opponents, maybe don't press so high, so everything is connected. Let's actually have a deep talk about Rasmus Hojlund, because I think Rasmus Hojlund could become a very good player, and I think he's very young, he's very raw, he's low on confidence, out of form. At Hojlund's age, confidence, and as a striker, is one of the most important things. Hojlund's job is almost impossible at the moment, because he's getting very little service, very little this, very little that, and the team dynamics are not suiting him at the moment. Hojlund is a young player thrown into a poor environment where there's a lot of pressure on him, where he's got absolutely zero confidence. I will give Hojlund that. But he needs to do better. His movement needs to be better. His hold-up needs to be better. Just Zirkzee holding the ball, keeping the ball, and playing those little flicks, it took us up a level. And if Hojlund's not scoring, his all-round play needs to be better. Now, Rasmus Hojlund has potential to be a 20-goal season striker with the right time, development, environment, and dynamics around him. I believe he could be a 20-goal season striker. Well, Zirkzee's never going to be a 20-goal season striker, but Zirkzee's the kind of player that, if he's at his very best, he could influence the team themselves to score 20 more goals because of his little flicks, his play. Like, he's probably the reason we scored 2 of those 3 goals. His movement, his little flicks is everything. Right now, Rasmus Hojlund needs to hold the bench for Joshua Zirkzee, because if none of our strikers are scoring goals, you may as well go with the striker that's offering more with the hold up, the link. And I think Joshua Zirkzee's looked really good in these 2 cameos. There's definitely questions around Zirkzee's mobility, Zirkzee's pace, but Hojlund is definitely a lot stronger than Zirkzee. But as Amarin said, it's not completely Hojlund's fault. Hojlund needs to do better. Hojlund needs to step up, and clearly confidence is shy for Hojlund. He had a really good run when he gets down the channels, really good crossing to Garnacho. I believe there's a player in Hojlund, and I believe because we didn't sign an experienced striker and we spent 72 million on him off the back of a 9-goal season, and he's at United, there's 10 times more pressure on Hojlund. If we had Harry Kane and Hojlund was the young striker learning from him and playing here and there, it's a different situation for Hojlund, especially if he costs £40 million, which obviously puts that pressure on Hojlund. He was never meant to be the ready-made player. He was one for the future. And I think because we haven't got that strike and we spent so much money on him, there's an expectation for Hojlund to be the ready-made player now. I think if you give Hojlund service and we play to his strengths and let him run down the channel, and I think when Amarin gets his wing-backs, his midfielders, his wingers and 10s in, and the system's right, I think Hojlund could thrive in the system and work well and find the confidence. Isak didn't step up to form until recent years. Shocker, as there's a lot of strikers that are late blooming. And I think that we can be patient with Hojlund, because I think he's got the attributes to become a top striker, but we need to improve the dynamics of the team. But we have to look at Hojlund and say he needs to be doing things better. His hold-up play was shocking. Yesterday, he kept losing the ball. His hold-up play was shocking. He couldn't keep the ball. He's being bullied by centre-backs. When he gets the ball, when he's allowed to drive forward with it and run in the wide channels, and we have that bit more space, you see him do well. But we aren't a team that's able to do that yet, because the dynamics of the team aren't there. So some of it is a team problem. He doesn't get service, but Joshua Zirkzee's hold-up play, his links, it's just connecting us more. There's more balance when Joshua Zirkzee is in the lineup now. Obviously, a young player in an unstable system needs to offer more when not scoring, but he showed potentials in games this season, particularly last season in the Champions League, and confidence is lacking. We saw last season what Hojlund can do. We know that if he gets service, he can score. We know he's got good attributes there. He's lacking confidence. There's a lot of pressure on him. So my thought process on Hojlund is very mixed. He needs to hold the bench for Joshua Zirkzee. But I'm not going to write off such a young player in an unstable environment and showing glimpses of what he can do when the team dynamics and the lack of balance doesn't suit him. He needs to hold the bench. He's lacking confidence. He needs to do more with the limited options he gets. And I think I would start Zirkzee over him. But I think there's a bit of an overreaction there. Now, with Rasmus Hojlund, could United sell him? At the end of the day, Amarin's going to be the judge of everything. If selling Rasmus Hojlund means you get Gyökeres in, maybe Amarin does that. The question is, Hojlund's a lot longer than Gyökeres. Would you want both at the club to potentially learn from each other? That could be one. I think the ideal situation at an inside Manchester United, if I was going to be honest, it would be to have an experienced, proper goal-scoring striker and Hojlund be there to learn off them. But now Hojlund's in his will go into his third season next year. And if we go into Hojlund's third season next year and it's not good enough, we may have to look at selling him. The one thing with Hojlund is he'll be easier to sell because we didn't give him ridiculous wages and there is a talent there and the striker market's limited. Arsenal did look at Rasmus Hojlund. I think Rasmus Hojlund, if he played for a more stable side where he was able to run in behind and the dynamics are right, I think he can be a top striker. So there will be teams out there for Rasmus Hojlund with interest in Rasmus Hojlund. He's young and he's sellable. But I think it's the fact that United spent 72 million on him, which means we need to see so much more, which isn't Hojlund's fault, but we spent 72 million on him, and people say he's not cut out for the Premier League. Performances are lackluster. He's shown little to no improvement. He's regressed this season, which is worrying. You guys worry too much. Why would Man United sell their best players when they're in the relegation zone? This is just paper talk. They want to sell, and that's true. But I think the reason they would sell near the relegation zone is if they sell Garnacho, that money could go into a left winger and a left 10 that could maybe improve us. But I don't think we can do that in January because I don't think the options are there in January. Although I say that, Man City seem to find everybody as well. Would you take Leaf Davies? One to look at for sure. Hojlund gets unfairly criticised on his off-the-ball movement. He starts against fresh legs. Last game he was sent so many long balls, no one to pass to. Zirkzee tired legs and played deeper. I get elements of what you're saying for sure. I think Hojlund is over-criticised because of the price tag and expectations. I think people would remember that we didn't bring him in to be the ready-made product, and the fact that we didn't get an experienced striker alongside Hojlund is a disgrace. But Hojlund needs to do more with the minutes he has in just terms of hold-up, in terms of movement. Do you know what I mean? I like Hojlund, but Man United may consider selling him if a big bid comes in because it's 2 seasons you're out. I think because Hojlund's so young, so raw, and he's shown so much glimpse and potential of what he can do, I do think he'll be somewhat safe. I do think he's going to be somewhat safe for now. But it'd be interesting to see what happens because I've got mixed thoughts on Hojlund, but there is sort of talk that United are open to selling him. If the right offer comes in the summer, it could happen. It'll be interesting to see what happens and develops with the Rasmus Hojlund exit. Now, obviously, there was a lot of talk early in the win about Zirkzee leaving. He had that bad game versus Newcastle and all that, and he was almost crying, and all that. So it all sort of heated up. But it's died down a bit because I think Zirkzee wants to stay and not give up on his United career so early. We saw signing Randall Colomawani on loan. Juventus sent a formal offer to Man United for Joshua Zirkzee, a loan with an option to buy. United shut the door to that offer and opted to keep Zirkzee. The player confirmed his intention to stay. And while some people want Zirkzee gone and don't like Zirkzee, I think we need to keep Zirkzee. It's not like Hojlund's firing in all cylinders and Zirkzee's been rubbish. You can argue Zirkzee had a better season than Hojlund. Zirkzee just gets more stick about it because I don't think people understand Zirkzee. Hojlund is a traditional number 9. He's a goal scorer, whereas Zirkzee doesn't have those goal-scoring instincts. He has a very different role, and I think people don't always understand Zirkzee's role, which I think is why he's got more stick than Rasmus Hojlund in the early stages of his career, if I'm going to be honest. I think so. And I'm happy that Zirkzee's staying to the end of the season. I think he's got things to offer. I think he's had good games for United, Zirkzee, not just the last 2, but the other Southampton game, the Crystal Palace game. And I think if we can play Zirkzee into a bit of form, a bit of confidence, I think there's elements of his game that improves us, the touches, the hold-ups. He makes the team better. The question is Zirkzee made for the Premier League? He does lack the mobility. He does lack the pace. He's maybe one that United look to sell in summer if they don't think he's made for the Premier League, in terms of the lack of mobility, in terms of the lack of pace. But I like Joshua Zirkzee. I think Joshua Zirkzee can be a good signing for United if given time. I think we're writing him off too quickly. He's a young player thrown into a poor environment that's got to learn the system. The question, does he have the mobility for the Premier League? We're going to find that out. But I think looking at Joshua Zirkzee, keep him to the end of the season because Hojlund's not firing. Right now, our best front three is Ahmad, Zirkzee, Rashford if Rashford was available, but he's not. So we can't say Rashford. So it's probably Bruno playing in attack with Mayo and Agati in the pivot. But I'd keep Joshua Zirkzee. I'd keep Rasmus Hojlund, and maybe let the manager choose which one of them he wants to sell in the summer. Garnacho's one that maybe you sell in the summer if a big fee comes in, Amra doesn't seem as a fit, and you can invest that money elsewhere. Rashford will go in the summer. Antony's got to go regardless of what happens. And United will need to do a big attack overhaul. They need 2 wing backs, but maybe one of those wing backs can be someone that can play as a 10, like a Semenyo or like a Dibbling. Someone that could, and then for me, when you're out and out left wing back, Cunha, Gyökeres, maybe a Dibbling or Semenyo that can mix between right wing back and 10. Midfielder for legs, another centre back. That's what we need if we're really going to rebuild. And then people will talk about goalkeeper this and that. Did Collier impress me? Yes, Collier did impress me. It was really good to see Collier come on and put the legs in and defensive stability and help give us elements of control. Make Zirkzee number 10. I don't think Zirkzee doesn't have the mobility to be a number 10. I think Zirkzee suits the number 9 role more than number 10 role. And I got that wrong. I thought he'd suit the number 10 role better and play with Hojlund. But I think he's better in the 9 role if Amram wants his 9 to drop deep. Hojlund and Zirkzee playing together could work, but I do worry. I think unless Collier and Bruno are in midfield behind Zirkzee, if you've got Collier, Bruno in midfield, or Bruno and Agati in midfield in the pivot, and you've got Bruno as the other 10, I think Zirkzee can work. But I think due to the lack of mobility, you'd need the other 3 players to have a lot of legs around him. Hojlund looks lost on the pitch. His first touch is non-existent. His positioning is amateurish. Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of Hojlund's drop-off is confidence. I think people forget how, at such a young age, how important confidence is. I think confidence is a huge reason behind the recent drop-off in Rasmus Hojlund's form, to be honest. Because I've seen him play games where he's looked good and he's been an exciting talent. We saw elements of it last season, but the guy's massively dropped off, yeah. Talking of a player that can't even score a tap-in, Antony. What is the latest on Antony? Because he's not even scoring tap-ins at United. It was said that Real Betis are actively exploring a move for Antony on loan. It will require Manchester United to pay a significant portion of his wages for the deal to come off. United want to get Antony out, but the only way we're going to get Antony out is if we loan him out and we pay a fair chunk of his wages. I think United are waiting to see what happens with Rashford and Garnacho before making a decision on whether they're going to loan Antony out paying his wages. I think Antony, like Jadon Sancho, will be a deadline day thing because Ineos want him out. Ineos are hoping a loan would improve his playing time. Ineos do not rate him. Man United do not rate him, but they cannot sell him. So I think the whole situation with Antony, is how much money, what happens with Rashford, what happens with Garnacho. I think Antony, if he leaves, is a deadline day thing. He couldn't do it against Southampton. He couldn't even score a thing. Antonio Nusa was one that we've been linked to before. Talent. I like Gittins. If I could go for anyone, I like Semenyo and I like Cunha. I like Semenyo and Cunha if I was to go for anyone. We've also been linked to Naipan. Now, the reason United aren't going in for Naipan is 1, it was more of a 10-year-old type signing, and 2, Manchester United feel that they cannot go for youngsters when the first team squad needs improving more. They need a bit of experience. They need players that are ready to come in and make an impact because, look, we were 15th in the league yesterday. Luckily, we're 12. I say luckily we're 12. 12 is still not good enough, but we're very close to the bottom of the league table. So we need players that are kind of coming now and players that are ready to make an impact. So that's why United aren't necessarily moving for players like Naipan that we linked to before, because they've realised they need ready-made players now. That's what the situation is. Let's continue into the next story. So I want to dive into a few things that Ruben Amorim said. But before I do that, I do want to just quickly touch upon the talk of Man United having a serious interest in Jeremy Gittins. I think that could be one to watch if Garnacho leaves the club. I think it definitely could be one to watch. Gittins, English left wing, playing well in the UCL and the league for Dortmund, reminds me of someone. I'm always sceptical about bringing players in from the Bundesliga because I do think there's an element of Bundesliga tax there. But Gittins is a very, very exciting player. But I want to dive into some comments that I didn't touch upon in my video earlier today in regards to what Ruben Amorim said. And I'm going to go first of all into what De Ligt said on the squad and maybe some things going on at United. Matthijs De Ligt said this: it's not always the team that plays the best that wins, because Southampton deserved to win that game for 70 minutes. He said, even if I think we had a few moments in today, in the first half, they pressed high, they won all the duels, it was difficult for us. Fortunately for us, they started to try towards the end and we could take advantage. But Matthijs De Ligt is coming out and saying, the best team didn't win today. And Ruben Amorim is going to be speaking to the Manchester United players. He's going to be making his feelings clear that they were not good enough versus Southampton. We may have won the game because Amad Diallo scored a 12-minute hat-trick and bailed us out at the end there. But it was not good enough for United. 3-1 scoreline was very flattering. Do you know what I mean? And Matthias de Ligt says it himself. And Man United, clearly, if we're getting played off the park by Southampton, we clearly need some kind of investment in January. And I think they want Rashford out off the wage bill, PSR, this and that. I think they obviously want someone like Antony out if they can get him out. But they may consider selling a Garnacho or selling someone in January because it's clear we need a wing back and it's clear we need another attacker because there's a clear lack of quality right now inside United, a clear lack of quality because we were played off the park by Southampton, but we're absolutely played off the park by Southampton as well. Southampton played a 3-4-2-1, so we couldn't overload them. They amplified our weaknesses. They got it spot on tactically. Aaron already said the important thing is to win. The thing is in EPL, you need points, and it's not a preseason when you can continue to try out stuff and improve 100%. Results are important. But Amarin is someone that will be having a go at the players because he wants to see a system. He wants to see a style implemented. Off the ball, we did really well against Liverpool. We did really well against Arsenal. But Southampton on the ball, when we're meant to have more of the ball and do more with it, we can't. This team, I think, can be coached off the ball. A lot of it comes to mentality and work rate. But Amarin isn't a magician. If you want to improve them on the ball, you need to get better players for Ruben Amarin. Anyway, people, I'm going to wrap up today's live show because literally in 1 minute, I'm going to be joining Cass on his channel. So I'm going to redirect you to Cass's channel because I'm literally about to go live on United Cass's channel where we are going to basically be discussing all this news in more detail. So when this stream ends, it's going to redirect you to Cass, by the way, people. So make sure you go check out his channel and all of that. And I will see you over on Cass's channel. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.